Basically, about a year ago, I decided to embark on a journey to South America, and specifically to Peru. I didn't know at the time where I was going exactly. I knew Lima was a good place to enter, and I wanted to travel in several different countries, and there were a lot of people who asked me why I wanted to do that. And that was a difficult question for me to answer at the time. And I want to kind of share with you guys some concepts and some words that have taken on a new meaning in my life since this journey began. One thing that I found is that I was living a fantastic life. It was great. I had a job that I loved. I worked at a homeless shelter, a women's shelter that I had started volunteering at when I was 13 and had a huge passion for. I had a great apartment. I had a boyfriend. I was in a serious relationship and thought that, okay, this is it. This is what I was supposed to do, right? I'm supposed to go to high school, then go to college, get a full-time job, have insurance, all of these things that matter. And why then, why was there's this like voice in my head that kept saying, what about art? What about writing? What about music? What about, traveling? When are you gonna do that stuff? And I kept telling that voice, it's not important, shh, shh. And I was living more, I would say, from the outside in. And this journey has been a journey of transformation for me, and a journey that resulted in me living my life from the inside out. So I think that oftentimes, we all have lots of influences on our lives, such as our parents and where we went to school and our culture and the media. And that, undoubtedly has a big effect on who we identify as. I think it causes something that I refer to as fragmentation, and other people have talked about it using this word as well. Basically, the idea is that we create a persona and we live into that persona as if it is who we truly are. However, because of the creation of this separate persona, it causes a separation between who we truly are, our true selves, my true self, as an artist and a musician, and, as a person wanting to travel and wanting to learn new languages. My persona, there was no space for that person in who I was being. It's not that that persona was bad. I mean, I was, by all looks of it, having a wonderful life, and even to my own understanding, I thought, well, this is everything. This is what I wanted. So why is this voice continuing to haunt me? And that is where this awareness came in to my being. It got to a point where I couldn't ignore that voice any longer, and it just kept gnawing. And so that is when, that's when this sense of awareness kind of flooded my reality. The first time I recognized that, this person that I was trying to be was not actually who I was. And that's really scary because, that's who I've invested in for 25 years. I turned 26 last week, but that is who, that's who I committed to. That's who I am. I slaved at college, and I slaved at my job, and I'm working a 9-to-5, and I have a car, and I have an apartment, and why isn't that enough? And it's really, when that awareness comes into your life, it can be kind of an overwhelming thing. And I took steps at that point to try to, understand what was happening on a deeper level. And those things that, I did also were part of my journey in helping me along, starting a practice of yoga and starting a practice of self-care. And that helped me a lot to understand what was going on inside myself. So yeah, kind of what I touched on, but when you do sort of become aware of that fragmentation, it is terrifying because you don't want to depart from all of this energy that you've been putting in one direction for a long time. And when I made the decision to go to Peru, people commonly, why do you want to go? And mostly, even when they asked me that question, I could feel their judgment, why would you do this? And maybe it was me judging myself and I was projecting that on them, but I felt, this fear of, and I got these questions a lot. What are you going to do when you come back? How is this going to look on your resume? How does this coincide with this career, that you've created? And are you sure you want to do this? You're sure. You have a great apartment. You have all, why do you want to give this stuff up? And there were a million reasons to be afraid of going to Peru. And I went also by myself, which I think was a really hard thing for, I know, my friends and family, because why would you go alone? Go with someone, please, anyone. But it was something I had to do for myself. This is the tarantula, actually, that lived in my house in Peru. One of them, there were many. So how do you combat fear? How do you get over that in your own life? For me, the obvious answer is, of course, love. And I don't mean, when I say love, I don't mean loving your parents or your dog or your boyfriend or girlfriend, I mean loving yourself. And this is something that I forgot to do, and this is something that it's very easy to forget to do when you're living into this persona, because you have to tell your true self, shh, no, you can't do it. You're not good enough. You'll never be a singer. You'll never be, you can't go to Peru by yourself. What are you thinking, And you start that self-talk. I can't do it. I'm not good enough. I can't do it. And what I realized is, I started to talk about it with yoga, but as being a practice of self-love, but there's other ways that I tried to incorporate this concept into my daily life, and it really is a practice. It's not like, oh, now I love myself because I made the decision. It's not like that because there's a lot of training that, many, many years of telling yourself these stories, and a lot of it, has to do with this outside in. You're comparing yourself to external factors. It's not who you are. So there's a lot of self-hatred that comes along with just, with constantly putting the emphasis on the external. And I encourage, a practice of self-love for me looked like, it's going to sound corny, but really like standing in the mirror and saying like, you can do it. And it first is like a joke, you're like, this is ridiculous and blah, 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 blah. And then, after a while, you can actually feel it, and you feel fear sort of melting away, because what is, the fear, where is fear coming from? And I thought a lot about that too, like, thanks a lot, evolution. It's really awesome we have fear because it's what stops us from jumping off a building or running out into moving traffic. But there's some times when fear is not appropriate. And in this case, I really do believe that what stops us from doing something we love or being who we truly are is fear of that fragmented self that persona, as Freud calls the ego. The ego does not want to die, and it will try to do everything it can do to stay alive. And that is where that fear comes from for me, and identifying that really helped me understand it and transform it into my favorite thing, action. So you have to, you know, my decision was that, okay, I know this now. I've got the awareness. I'm trying to love myself. I'm trying to tell myself that I can do it, you know. But thinking about it, intending something is not enough. And I think that's a good thing to bring up nowadays, because I hear a lot about this manifestation concept, and it's like, okay, if I just think about it, then it'll happen. But that's BS. That's the first step, you know. You definitely have to think about it and intend and, you know, visualize it. All of those are really great pieces of advice when you're doing something that you feel maybe out of your realm of normality or comfortability. But it takes more than that. You have to act, you know, and you don't have to know where you're going to be at the end, you know. You don't have to always, I think for me, I always put so much emphasis on, well, what am I going to do when I get back? And what am I going to do when I go down there, you know? Like, I'm a hard worker. I'm not just going to go travel around for 6 months and, you know, where is this leading? But for a moment, you know, let that fear go and started taking very simple steps towards this goal. And I mean, Kevin knows because I was talking to him about it a lot during the process, but like going, you know, just ending, you know, making the decision with my job, tying things up in my apartment, like just very slowly. I made the decision to leave probably 6 months before I actually bought my plane ticket, and it was quite a process. But it was one step at a time, you know, just one step at a time. Looking at flights, looking at my bank account, trying to figure out realistically, how much is this going to cost? Is this something I can actually do? And then, you know, slowly introducing it to people really close to me and getting feedback, and just one step in front of the other. And the crazy thing for me is that I went down there, I traveled for a couple months, and I ended up getting a job. And I ended up working for an organization down there called the Amazon Research and Conservation Center. And they have, their goal is to purchase 11,000 hectares in the Amazon jungle. And that's 25,000 acres. And I was able to use my fundraising skills that I had learned at Access at the homeless shelter to help them raise $25,000 to buy this piece of rainforest. I didn't know I was going to do that, but I followed my heart and I put one foot in front of the other, and it worked out. And I had the most beautiful, transformative experience of my life. It was really hard. It was really scary. I was robbed at gunpoint within the first week of being there. They took my iPhone, my sacred iPhone, which I was so attached to. Like, I had no idea how attached to it I really was. I mean, until I lost it, you know? They took my iPod, so all my music, and my camera, and my passport, and some cash. So that, you know, was another great opportunity. I was sitting in the police station in Peru, don't speak Spanish, thinking to myself, well, if I want to go home, I can go home right now. You know, no one's going to blame me for going home. But I knew that, you know, well, what I told myself is they can take my stuff, but they can't take my adventure. And it turned out that that experience, which was the scariest experience of my life by far, actually created a tone and an experience for the rest of those 6 months that I was down there that I would not have had. If that wouldn't have happened to me, I would have been on my phone and I would have been listening to my music. And that was the opposite of what I did. When I was sitting on a public bus and there were chickens flying over my head and people screaming at each other, and I heard all of that. And those experiences, those sounds, and the things that I saw because I was looking up and not down are things that created my experience and made it what it was and made it as important and meaningful to me as it was. So you never know what bad things happen to you that can actually just be opportunities. And I am very, very grateful that I got to have that experience, and it was all worth it. It was perfect. It was perfect, but it was definitely difficult, and I think that really the thing to take away is, don't get so caught up in what you want to do, but ask yourself who you want to be. And I wanted to be a woman who's traveled the world. I want to be a woman who knows several languages. I want to be a woman who knows how to play the guitar and how to create art, and also how to fundraise and how to market, But those other pieces of me were just as important as the business Eliza, the fundraising, marketing Eliza. The artist Eliza, the musician, and the traveler are also parts of myself that need to be honored. And I was able to help myself reach integration through this experience, and I hope that I can continue to do so in all of my experiences and challenges that I take on in life. And I want to thank you guys. Thank you for listening and being awesome.